Most people end the quarter and just go to the next one. No review, no integration, no honesty in relation to what's not worked. Because most of the time when it comes down to corporate environments, the only thing that matters is P&L. But the people that I work with, the human behind the performance, actually P&L is just an expression. It's just an expression of how well you're leading. It's actually how you're leading yourself, how you're leading other people, and what standards you've set across that quarter. And what I'm going to do over today is paint you a picture of how to evaluate your quarter. If you're getting exactly the same results, this would be for you. Because what most people I deal with is they want to white knuckle their way to elevating themselves across the board, whether it's their mind, their body, and their business. This is going to give you a 10-minute audit of what you should be doing. This is a pen and paper job. So if you are driving, please stop the car and take notes, or listen to this later. And actually, what I'll do, if you're listening to this podcast, because I appreciate you listening, if you'd like a copy of my quarterly review document that I'll be sending out to Build for Pressure today, I'll be happy to send it to you. Anyway, at iOS, name of the game when it comes down to quarterly reviews is obviously an after action review of the last 90 days. What I'd like you to do is take a gut instinct of what that means. If you are winning the quarter, you probably don't need to be told it. If you've been like a burning plane inside of that quarter, behind closed doors, you've eaten yourself alive, and vice versa, you feel like you're on the edge of burnout. Or there's a last one, which most people don't know, is that when you're on the edge of burnout, you actually feel like Superman because your adrenaline is so high, that's where you're about to crash. What I'd like you to do is give yourself the courage and understanding of how to actually evaluate your last 90 days is being honest with yourself from a gut check. Your gut check's where it all's going to sit for you. Because the point of this 90-day review is actually to find where the leaks are. Nobody is operating at 1,000,000 miles an hour, wanting to push their limits and not actually bleeding somewhere. This is just what part of what happens. And the reality is most people want perfection here. They think that they can just outwork it, outsource it, or it doesn't account to them, where the reality is parts of you will not be operating at the standard needed for you to actually take yourself to the next level. And your job right now is to figure out what you need to do, who needs to help you, how you need to do it, or what integrations you need to build into your company to allow you to actually elicit the level of results you're asking for. Now, for me, the 90-day review for my thing, I've committed to two massive pieces of the puzzle. I got some mental performance help in relation to me, how to evolve my process, and I also committed to where we're going with Built for Pressure, integrating new products, new terminology, new evolutions in relation to delivery, how we're delivering it, what we're going to be building into the next quarter and beyond, all through Q1. Because actually, the big part of Q1 for me was development. To be honest, big part of Q2 is development too. Because if you're looking to build something that's sustainable, especially the level of information out there at the moment and the level of integration that is coming, most people can't sustain that level of pressure without building the mechanisms for it. And that's what's happening inside of our company. Number two is biological stability and physical capacity. This is where the athletic performance and health side of things come down to fruition. Because most expensive decisions for my clients are not through psychological states, they're from biological ones. Sleep debt, cortisol overload, chronic energy deficit, not actually training effectively, pushing through pain. People aren't talking about that in boardrooms because human performance is the biggest driver of leadership performance out there. What most people do is they read or they add processes that aren't actually dealing with the million-year-old human body. Hopefully you don't. I look like as I film this, I need to shave this beard off. It's got grey in it, but I look a million years old. But sleep, energy, physical training, stress regulation in real time are all parts of recovery mechanisms. And how well are you recovering? Because from a personal angle, I'd be those that have been coming a lot. Yesterday, I went to hospital. I had another hip checkup that was from a previous scan, and it actually didn't show me the frustration of not being able to run at the moment is so fucking annoying. Excuse my French. But vesseling that into BJJ has actually given me another outlet. And the big part of this is it's weird. Me actually training now is a standard thing. And from a setup standpoint, actually training first thing as soon as I get up, I get hydrated, I play some time with the boy and I train, rather than dealing with my first work block was marketing first thing in the morning and pushing that into the day has actually given me way more capacity generally. So that's my biggest lesson over that quarter. So so just a caveat to this, what I want to do is giving you threads to pull on. One part when it comes down to quarterly reviews is that you want to be finding things that are illicit in your side, your process. I'm going to show you what I'm doing, but again, just a little nudge. This is an active process of you actually reflecting on what you're doing. Number 3, cognitive performance and decision quality. Now, this is actually directly correlated with your physiology, because remember, your brain is part of a system, and it performs in a totally different capacity when it's rested, fueled, and regulated. Most people talk about cognitive decision making and performance as a mental performance bottleneck, where most people haven't got the human side of them in check before they can actually elicit better decisions. I always talk about this. Your physiology dictates your psychology. Your psychology dictates your decision making. Your decision making dictates your business performance and your leadership performance. Most people think they have got psychological problems. This is where they talk about burnout, anxiety, overwhelm, and all this other shit, where actually what they haven't talked about is the physiology that's underneath it. And that's something that's huge inside of your process. There's things that you can manage and you can measure for it. And obviously, you can look at it from an objective standpoint of KPIs, from a cognitive capacity standpoint. But if you look at it subjectively, do you feel like you've got clarity in your direction currently? Are you locked and loaded with what you're trying to take away and what you're trying to push forward with when it comes down to your mind, body, and your business? Do you actually, from a physical standpoint, are you cloudy whilst you're thinking? Do you actually know exactly what you're doing on each day? Have you actually given yourself bandwidth in between meetings to allow your mind to rest, recover, reload, and go again? These are all huge parts of that decision quality puzzle that most people don't actually elicit and talk around. Remember, your decision quality is not a mindset problem. It's a capacity problem. If you're at your capacity, search for people that can help you improve it. I just finished some work with Tom Foxley, and the biggest part of my capacity that's actually helped me improve and elevate my standards across the board is presence. Because my mental resilience was extremely high. Those that have looked into my process before, I've had a huge amounts of physical trauma and also overcome massive feats of human performance in Ironmen, ultras, professional rugby, whatever, injury, all that other cool stuff, where actually my bottleneck was nothing to do with how hard I could go. It was actually how well I could be present with my feet are. Something for you to take note of. Number 4 is your leadership performance and professional impact. Because what's actually moving the needle this quarter? One thing, not a list, not you getting lost in loads of fucking high performance terms. I want one thing written down that's pushed the needle this quarter. Me, it's been clarity on decision making. I have had a revelation in being able to even trust myself even more, but understanding the physiological and mental performance pieces of that puzzle. And again, like I said, I sought help for that, and I've studied this over a long period of time. One part of me for Q2 is actually I'm becoming accredited into delivering mental performance trainings for around mental toughness and resilience. That's actually got KPIs and scorecard indexes that you can use, take away, and use with your team. Again, that's probably another podcast to go on. Within your leadership performance and professional impact, where did your standards slip? Do you have boundaries with your diary? Are you taking on meetings that aren't anything to do with you? Are you having conversations with people that are draining your energy? What's the root cause, and why have you let that standard slip? That's massive. And actually, what are you tolerating right now that you know full well that you should have let go? Because that's what's costing you your performance. For me, it was actually letting go of previous parts of my process that no longer served me. And if we in relation to not just delivery, but instead of looking out and figuring out how to build my business, is actually trusting myself and how I want to do it. That was a big part of me leading myself and leading other people. And over the next 90 days, how are you going to bridge that gap? Where your standards slipped, how are you going to recalibrate and realign? What's the one thing that you know that you can reconnect with that's actually going to give you momentum again? That's huge. Number 5 is your behavior architecture and your time governance. How you are actually utilizing your time to be more effective. Stop this productivity bullshit and I need to be more productive. That is a thing of the past in relation to, because the level of speed at the moment is not down to how much output you can create by giving more input. It's how much output you can create with less input. And that's if you're watching this on YouTube, Rian Doris, fucking amazing. Excuse my French, for someone to watch and listen about peak performance is huge. And let's start with your diary. Does your diary reflect your priorities currently? Have you got everything locked in that you know that keeps you moving forward? For me, it is time with my son and my family. It is training. It is food, and it is space. I have space in my day. I have to walk the dog. The best fat loss tool and the mental performance tool you can have is have a dog, apart from when he's being a bellend. But that is huge for me. How about you? Are you white knuckling through willpower currently? What do I mean by that? Are there things inside of your process that you're frustrated with? You hate doing, you don't want to do. You know full well that actually it is not not your wheelhouse, but you're currently continually thinking that you just have to be more resilient. If you are looking at it from a behavior standpoint, most of the time, let's not get it twisted. Some standards you just have to you have to train on to be healthy and in shape. Shush. You have to eat like an adult to be training in shape. Shush. You have to get off Netflix at 9 p.m. and go to bed. Shut up. Those are things that there are prerequisites to high performance. But from a behavior standpoint and a time standpoint, are there things in your diary that you know that you should not be doing anymore that you haven't let go of yet? Do you actually know when you're the best at your best inside of your diary from a delivery standpoint? Different skills require different frames and different states of you. You cannot be on from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. and be effective. I'll challenge anybody, because that's not the name of the game. That's why people come to me, is they're fucked because they literally have just been on war, attack. Well, like I said, you want to build an F1 car, it's not about attack. It's about learning how to steer and brake, because the accelerator is a given. And if you don't know that, that's all you're finding you're bumping up against that is because you're not recognizing that push and pull inside of your performance. Number 6 is actually your identity, self-leadership, and ownership. Identity is a huge one at the moment. I think a lot of people are talking around it, and people haven't got the mechanisms underneath what identity really means. And you have to look at it from a science perspective. But you can look at it from a brain standpoint, or you can look at it from the way Steve Magnus talks around it, about actually having a broad identity and a narrow identity. Most people who I encounter are extremely narrow on who they are. But the issue, that the reason why they're getting bottlenecked, is because they actually want to grow in other areas of their life, which no longer serve the person that they built. An example, me being a professional sport, it taught me so much around physical resilience, around determination, leadership, all that kind of cool stuff. But when I left sport, I didn't know who I was. It took me a long time to figure out what makes me happy, what makes me inspired, what keeps me going, who do I want to work with, all that kind of cool stuff. And broad identities then ensue. And that's where they're in different parts of my process. I'm a different dad to a businessman. I'm a different athlete to a friend. I'm a different husband to a leader or a speaker. Point being, you have to be a different person at a different time. And if you have broad identities that are able to be where your feet are, you're going to have to find so much more joy in the chaos that is ensuing. Something that I fucking love at the moment, and I relish the challenge, and I want the pressure. I want to fucking push myself, but I also know when I'm at a barbecue with my mates, I don't need to be that intense. That's the name of the game, because what people are bumping up against is an identity ceiling, and that ceiling is either self-imposed or it's a safety mechanism. Because if I can't do that, it's not part of who I am, or it's not what I do. People that are adaptive are people that are leading from the front. The rigid things break, and that's probably one of the biggest bottlenecks that most high performers have at the moment, is they're putting a rigid process inside of an adaptive quarter, and that's where you're getting frustrated. Especially, I've got a lot of my customers who are operating in the shipping industries at the moment. Carnage. How do you adapt and how do you adopt? And lastly, number 7, the quarter ahead. What's one key mechanism that you want to achieve over this next 90 days? For me, I've got 5 projects that need to align over that quarter that all amount to the same thing. We're building out an executive performance dashboard that is integrated through Whoop, Aura, all that kind of cool stuff. I want that to be absolutely cooking. That gives me a huge downstream effect of how we operate inside the company, how we actually track data, and how we actually improve performance across the board. That is the name of the game for me over this quarter, is not just that dashboard, but that dashboard represents everything from my customer journey, everything that I've done so far. That is a deliverable that I want to make sure that my customers have. What are the 3 constraints that are actually going to limit that? What are the 3 things that you need help with that you're going to struggle with, and how do you alleviate that pressure? And one thing that I think probably a little bit of a curveball is, what are you willing to stop doing to start performing as you said you would? What are you going to leave in Q1? There's something in there that hasn't been serving you. You need to put that in the fucking bin and put the lid on. Because elite performance is not about addition, it's about subtraction. It's about taking away things that aren't serving you, because they are slowing the bus down. If this quarter was successful, how would I feel? Sounds very obvious. But for me, I am adopting, I want to be calm, collected, focused, and not worrying about what everything is going on outside of me. I think a lot of entrepreneurial people are looking at the enemy, thinking they need to beat the enemy, where elite level businesses aren't there to beat the enemy. They're there to serve at a higher level. I want to keep it calm, collected, and focused, and enjoying what I'm doing are all parts of my next growth in this quarter, because that's something that I've missed. I missed that last year. Last 2 quarters, Q3, Q4 last year, I really struggled with that. And what's one trait that you need to have as a leader that's going to allow you to operate at this level? What's one thing that you need to, for me, this is gut instinct. It's served me over the years, and I've never listened to it in relation to thinking, actually, when I was making big decisions, I just thought I started overthinking it, analyzing it, and I'm a scientist by nature, where the reality was that my gut instinct usually is the right path for me. Over this quarter, that's what I'm going to be doing. That's what I'm going to be doing. So anyway, I digress. I hope that makes sense. The quarterly review is not just about looking back. It's about building a precise understanding of what your current bottleneck is and what lever you need to pull heading into Q2. We are taking on new executives, founders, CEOs, and people who are looking to push their performance. And again, the name of the game is to have something integrated that can be built around your process. The frustration I see across the board in the high performance space of buzzwords and people telling you what's wrong, you don't need that. You don't need motivation. You need someone to performance governance. That's what we offer. Telling you what you need to do, when, and how you can execute it, so you can actually be more effective inside your company, happier at home, and be the person that you said that you would. If this is you, drop me a note. I'd love to get to know you, and vice versa. I massively appreciate you listening to this episode. Lastly, if you do want a copy of our quarterly review, just DM the word quarter in any social media platform, LinkedIn or Instagram, wherever. I'll send you that happily. And anyway, I digress. I'll catch you guys soon.